Okay, so here are my dihedral pieces. What I did is just to help me line things, I drew a line. I picked the low spot, or basically where these things, have their angle set, the high and the low points. I just drew a line between the two points on each one of these dihedral pieces. I think that may help. We'll see how it goes, but maybe this will help sort of the alignment, especially when I put in these other spars that are going to go here in between, these little spar pieces, these W14, 9, and 8. I'll be able to kind of line them up on those lines. I mean, it should kind of all go together without doing that. But again, this is just another little extra step that I'm doing just to sort of keep things when I'm doing stuff so I can look at it and eyeball it and make sure things are looking okay. So I'm going to pop these guys out of here. This is the middle one. Carefully pop them out. Okay, there we go. And these are pretty clean. They don't really need to be sanded, I don't think. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Just kind of get some of the edge off. Okay, well, looking at the plan, this is how these are going to go. There's going to be one here. There's going to be two of these W5s, sort of like the main ones are here. There's going to be two of these W7s on the inside and outside of the trailing edge. And then I have this one in the middle, W6, goes right here. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is that since these spars, I think these ones are okay, but since these are a little bit long, when you're building the wing, they need to be trimmed. That's okay. But I'm going to use the dihedral pieces themselves as sort of a guide. So I checked the measurements and I made sure that everything's good. And I'm going to, like, for example, on this one, I'm going to take this dihedral piece, just goes right back here. I'm going to line it up like this, like so, in here. And then I marked it, and I kind of know where it is anyhow because it bends right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and mark on either side of this thing here, like this. This one I have a little bit of room to work. And that's going to give me I'm just going to draw a line here. Okay, so that will give me if you can see it, this line right here. That'll give me a guide to cut and match it. So I'm going to do that one right there. So that'll be the first one, for example. And then I can do the same thing on this side, which would be, move this out of the way. We're kind of assuming that everything is built correctly. Here and here, I'll just describe it on here. Okay, so now if I cut, now if I cut this little piece off here and do the same thing on the other one, I should be easy to align them. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and check these and I'll mark them, and then we'll start cutting. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do is I marked left and right for my designated my wing halves. The reason being is when I go through and I mark these spars to be cut, on the spar itself, it's going to be angled because of the dihedral. See? So when this is in here, it's going to be angled. So this line is going to be angled to match the dihedral. Well, it has to be the opposite on the other wing panel. So basically they both have to, it's going to form a V, right? Like this is forming a V or a chevron. Same thing has to happen with the cuts for the spars. So I want to make sure that I don't cut them both exactly the same, because then they won't form a V. They'll be parallel and it won't work. So I'm going to mark my both sides like I did here, my left and my right, and then I'm going to keep track of what I'm doing here when I'm marking these. Okay, so now I've marked my dihedral on these spars, so I can do this one here, so you can see, hopefully with this image you can see the line, how it matches. And then for the front one, we don't have one of these dihedral pieces for the front, but I can still use it as a guide because it's all the same, they're the same length. So what I did is I just marked it. I took my dihedral and I put it back here like that, as you can see. And I marked it on the wood on this side. Oops, that was the camera. And I put the mark there. So those are the angles that I need to cut these at. So let's see if I can do that real quick here. I'm gonna cut a little bit longer still, so I can always sand it. There's that one. And then same on this side. Razor saw is really nice. You can pick up a set of these. They're not too bad cost-wise, but they're really good for stuff like this. Okay, so now you see, now you see how I got those angles cut on there. So, in theory, put my piece here. Okay, so that'll go like that. And that matches the dihedral. And then I already cut this other one. I still have to trim the middle of these two, but we will see. We're going to go together like this. So they're not all the way together yet because I have to trim the middle, these middle spars also, but you can see how these are going to fit. Okay, well, I went through and I spent some time trimming these and making sure everything was the right length, using the dihedral pieces as my guide. And I think I got pretty close. It's not perfect, but everything's gonna sort of fit together like this. So how I'm going to do this now is I'm going to take these dihedral pieces and I'm going to start with the center section, and I'm going to clamp in glue. I'm going to use epoxy. I'm going to epoxy this one on like this, and this is basically when everything's lined up correctly, it should be good to go for me to take this other piece, and I'm going to slide it inside here like this. As you can see here, I'm kind of holding it, and so that's how I'm going to put it together. And I'm going to use the 30-minute epoxy, and this is going to help set the dihedral, and then I'm going to clamp it, and then we're going to let it dry overnight. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mix a little bit of our 30-minute epoxy here. Okay, so that should be good to go. Now, so this is going to work out really well because, you know, this is sort of the why this is sort of an easy kit, because these are going to act almost like a jig in a weird way to get everything lined up correctly. So as long as these spars are constructed correctly, and they should be because everything's plug and play with this thing, when I'm doing this, the wing should be nice and straight when it's finished. At least that's what we hope. So I'm going to start with this guy. So this one is going to go on here. Oops, I'm going to move over here a little bit. Set this right here like this. Now for its brother or sister, all right, this guy is going to go like this. Just like a sandwich. Okay, so now here's our little pals of the clamps. So I want to make sure this is nicely lined up. Okay, it looks pretty good. I'll put this on here loosely right now, or just kind of not completely snug, just so I can move it a little bit more. Press these up here nicely so they seat against this this rib. And I want to make sure everything's flush. I want to make sure that these two panels are flush with the spar. And they look like they're pretty good here. Okay. See that? Let's go ahead and give it a nice squeeze. Now we'll do the other side. I'm going to go ahead and try to put it on the inside of the plywood pieces, the dihedral pieces, because I think if I put it on the spars, it would have a tendency to just smear off. Put some inside here on this guy. And again, the 30-minute epoxy is going to give us lots of time to work. So I'm not going to use, obviously I'm not using CA. I think this is a good time to use our 30-minute epoxy, nice and strong. All right, let's get this out of the way. Now, here we go. Just like that. Now, obviously it's going to move, so I'm going to clamp it. Just so it holds it. Now I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the other side, as I'm going to get it to line up as close as possible. Boy, I wish I had 3 hands right now. Okay, on the bottom here now, push this in, and I'm going to do another clamp on this side. That right there. And this side is looking a little, spar is a little low right here, but that's okay. It goes like that, it goes like this. All right, so you can see here that, so this is nice and flush on the bottom. That looks good. And then, of course, this is pretty close, so that we have room to, we're gonna have to adjust these things, but they're pretty good. I'm not worried about that. This spar down in here looks like it's going a little bit low, but that's okay. I don't think it's gonna matter. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a good clamp here, make it tighter. And then also looking inside here at the turn it around, right in here, you want to make sure that this is butted up against these two ribs, and it looks like it's doing well there. So that's good. All right. As I mentioned before, you want to make sure when you clamp that you don't have your stuff kind of walk on you. Okay, that's good right there. All right, nice. This is good right here. And because this is a little squirrely, I'm gonna do another one. Come on, dude. Right down here. So what I'm gonna do now is on this back side, I have these 2 pieces here. 2 more pieces. And let me get my epoxy. I'm only going to glue right now the inside one. And the reason that is I will explain in just a second here, is because on the outside one I have to hold off on that, and I'll explain that in just a second here. It's going to be a little tricky. Need more clamps. Okay, so I'm going to use this one's going to go. This one's not going to be glued right now, at least. Now I'm starting to try to work a little faster because my 30 minutes may be waning. Okay. So you can see I've got it. It's nicely. Oops. Now that the wing's connected, it's kind of hard to move around, but that's good. And we're just looking at the inside. We're not worried about the outside one right now. That's fabulous. Okay, let me put another clamp right here. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna do one on here. Over there. Okay, so I got everything clamped and ready to go. I added some more clamps in here. So the reason why I didn't glue, at this point, I didn't glue this back brace on is because what's gonna have to happen is that here are the aileron linkages or the horns that are going to connect to the ailerons, and these are they're going to be mounted, oops, like this one's more like it, like this one right here. So it's going to be mounted under, back behind here, up against the trailing edge. And what you have to do is you have to cut a groove into the trailing edge, and this is going to set inside there. And then when that sets inside there, then you come back and you clamp on or you glue on this outer support. So if you did that now, that would have been a mistake because then I'd have to cut through it in order to put these little aileron linkages in here. So what we'll do is this is going to go ahead and set up. We'll take this and set it aside, and we'll do the rest of the wing, and then when we put the ailerons on, we'll go ahead and do that step. But so for right now, you just don't glue that one on. The other thing that I did is, if I can move this without knocking everything over, I can show it here. Maybe right here you can see this clamp right here. So what I did is this front end, so the leading edge spars, which are right here, don't have a support like these other ones do. They don't have a dihedral piece. They just butt up against each other straight. So what I did is I put epoxy between them, and then I clamped them, and I used this little wax paper so that the clamp doesn't get glued onto the leading edge. So that'll just peel off. But this is the way I just was able to align the leading edge and get them kind of stuck together with the epoxy, and that'll hold those two. That's not going to be a super strong bond just because you're butting the two of them together like that. You're not going to have a lot of strength like this. I mean, you'll have some. That's not where the main strength's coming from. The main strength holding this thing together is going to be the big plywood pieces, and then the sheeting and everything else. But that was a good thing to do to make sure that the leading edge, is lined up. So I think we are good with this step right now. So we will let this sit overnight and cure up on us, and then we can come back and do the next step, which is going to be there's one more piece to put in here. This one's going to have to go in here, but I need to be able to line that up correctly. This one can wait, and then we can do the sheeting and then put in the webbing and do the other things. So the wing is getting close, but we need to let this sit overnight, and we'll come back to it later.